Hello everyone, my name is Stephanie Ann and welcome to my channel. I am a full-time content creator and a social media manager, and the reason why I create this content or create these videos for you is because I want you to see my faith in line with my lifestyle. The scripture that I usually go by is 1 Timothy 4:16, which says, "Watch your life and your doctrine closely, persevere in them so that you will save yourself and your hearers." Alright, so again, we can't fly a plane with one wing, so I want to show you that you can live a true Christian life according to the Bible in this day and age. Because a lot of people think that it's ancient. There's no need for the Bible these days. Let's lean on our own understanding. Let's go by science. Let's go by all these different things. And science is actually still trying to figure out the Bible, still trying to figure out God's earth and who God is and all these different things and the things that God has created. But the Bible's there to tell us all of that. Why do we need some extra? Science is good, by the way. Very good, because it just proves that God is right. It proves that God is also real, and so this is the reason why I am here. This is why I create content, and today's topic is actually called Resurrected Through a Dream. Now I know you're thinking, resurrected through a dream, Steph, like when did you die? Like what do you mean? This is quite spiritual. Like, is this metaphorical? Is this a literal? Is it figurative? Like, what is it? Now I'm here to tell you about a particular dream that I had, for sure. This dream for me was so mad because I wasn't even a Christian at the time, but I was studying the Bible, right? I was studying the Bible. So let's get into it. Without further ado, let's get into it, okay? This was just before, I believe this was just around the time of lockdown, right? And all I remember is going to sleep. Of course, that's how you have a dream, right? All I remember is going to sleep, and then I just remember walking up the stairs of this haunted house, right? And as I'm walking up the stairs, I started to realize there's people with me. So there was my friends with me. I couldn't identify which friends in particular, but there were a few friends with me. They were behind me because I didn't look at them. I just heard their voices. I heard them calling my name and things like that. But then I heard someone who was in front of me leading the way with a very creepy, eerie type of voice. Anyway, we were following this person, or this figure, shall I say. And then we get to the attic. We get to the top of the house. It's very, very creepy. Like, as you're walking up the stairs, you're hearing creaks and stuff like that. So we get to the attic, right? And then all I see is boarded up windows, right? But then I see a small crack of light through those boarded up windows, and then I walked straight towards that light. Now I was there the whole time, looking through the crack basically in the boarded up windows, and I was like, I'm not taking my eyes from here. I don't want to. This feels awkward. This feels scary. It feels eerie, but anyway, all of a sudden, obviously I'm hearing my friends scramble behind me, and they were just talking. They were like, "Steph, look," right? And I'm like, I don't know, why are you telling me to turn around? I don't want to look, right? Next minute, the host, shall I say, was actually still in the same room, but then went across to there was a wardrobe on my right hand side. He or she went across to the wardrobe, opened the wardrobe, and then out came something. I don't know, because I wasn't looking, but I knew something that was previously alive was in there. And then that thing, I'm gonna call it a thing, I don't know, I don't even know what gender it was, I don't know, but all I know, I don't feel like that host was of this world, dare we say, maybe this was a demon, anyway, they put that thing on the sofa, and when the thing came out, I keep saying thing, when the thing came out, I smelled this stench, and it was such a strong and disgusting stench that I was like weirded out by it, right? It was almost like it was the smell of a corpse, a dead corpse, right? And then that dead corpse then was lying on the sofa behind me. Like I said, I did not see any of this, but I felt it. I felt it happening. And as soon as that corpse came out, right, she was like, I've been living with her all these years, in a very, very, very disturbing voice. And I was like, living with her, in my head, I was like, living with her for years. There's a dead corpse that just came out of that closet, lying on the sofa behind me, She's been living with her for years. My brain was mulling over in the dream. All of a sudden, my friends are like, Steph. Well, they didn't say Steph at the time. They were like, Stefan, look, turn around, look. And I was like, I'm not looking. I refused to look. I refused to look, right? And then I remember just waking up suddenly. So I woke up, and as I woke up with the same stench from the dream into real life. No word of a lie. Now, I'm not trying to convince you that this is real, but this is just my experience, right? I woke up with the same stench in my nose of a dead corpse. And it was like in that moment, I was like, I don't want to go back to sleep. I don't want to go back to sleep because I knew exactly what I needed to face. I knew exactly what I needed to face, but I didn't want to accept it at all, right? And I'm getting emotional even speaking about this because I just know that if there was any way that God was speaking to me, it had to be through this dream, you know. And anyway, I fell back asleep and I went back to the same place. I went back to the same place. I was standing by the boarded windows, focusing on the light, you know. I was focusing on that light, that one speck of light through the boarded up windows, right? That crack right there. And I don't remember much what happened after that. I just remembered that there was this stench that I had in my nostrils from waking up. From that dream. And the thing is, nothing smelled in my house at all, and there wasn't anything that I was eating that was, you know, smelling bad, or it just, yeah, I just woke up with the same stench in my nose, you know. So going back into that dream, I just had a feeling that that was me, that was Stephanie. And I was afraid to face Stephanie. I was afraid to face the woman that God was actually resurrecting. Because I didn't want to accept that I had to go back to my original gender, you know. I didn't want to accept that, and so it was a struggle for me to face that. I still didn't turn around. I stayed focused on the light. And anyway, that's the end of the dream. I can't remember what else happened after that. And again, I studied out John 20 again for my quiet time this morning. And so I want to take you through what this really means to me and what it means for me, you know. So I'm going to go to John 20. Whew. Oh man, God is amazing. God is actually like just incredible. So I'm going to read John 20. I want to read from verse 1 all the way to verse 10. So it says, early on in the first day of the week, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene went to the tomb and saw that the stone had been removed from the entrance. So she came running to Simon Peter and the other disciple, the one who Jesus loved, and said, they have taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we don't know where they have put him. So Peter and the other disciples started for the tomb. Both were running, but the other disciple, who is also John, his name's John, because he's the one that Jesus loved, right? Right, so yeah, both were running, but the other disciple outran Peter and reached to the tomb first. He bent over and looked in at the strips of linen lying there, but did not go in. Then Simon Peter came along behind him and went straight into the tomb. He saw the strips of linen lying there, as well as the cloth that had been wrapped around Jesus' head. The cloth was still lying in its place, separate from the linen. Finally, the other disciple, who had reached the tomb first, also went inside. He saw and believed. They still did not understand from scripture that Jesus had to rise from the dead. Then the disciples went back to where they were staying. Now, obviously, this is just after Jesus had been resurrected from the dead. And Mary Magdalene went and found the tomb was empty, and so she called the other disciples, Simon Peter and John, because again, like, she's like in shock, like, we need to, what's going on, like, who's taken Jesus, like, out of the tomb, like, why is the stone rolled back, like, what's going on here, you know? And so the the character that stood out to me the most here was John, the one whom Jesus loved. And the reason why he stood out is because he's the one who outran Peter. He's the one who got to the tomb first out of him and Peter, right? Which means he was eager for the truth. He was eager to see the truth. However, when he arrived there, he was paralyzed. He stood outside of the tomb, took one peep in, then he remained there. And this is so important to take note of, because at times we can run to the truth. We're like, we want to find out the truth, right? Like, I don't know, like, is the sky really blue? Let me run outside and look. Is it really thundering and lightning? Let me pull up the blinds and look, right? But then we get paralyzed. And I truly believe the reason why John was paralyzed is because of his disbelief. Of course, he was in disbelief, and he was also in shock, right? And so it's the same thing when it came to the dream. I was in shock about what happened in that dream. And I was in disbelief that all these years, a demon was the one who kept me locked in the closet. Right? And here we are as LGBT people saying, oh, I'm coming out of the closet. I'm coming out. I'm going to tell my friends that I'm gay. I'm going to tell my family that I'm gay. I'm going to tell my colleagues that I'm gay. I need to come out of the closet. In fact, it's not about us coming out of the closet. What happens is when we try to express our, let's say, sexuality and believe in that lie, it's Satan who keeps us locked in the closet. It's Satan who keeps us locked in and locked away from the light. If you remember, the windows were boarded up, right? And there was only a speck of light coming through, you know? And that's the light that we need to be focusing on. In fact, we need to be ripping the boarded windows apart so that we can actually embrace the light, so we can walk towards the light. But guess what? It ain't us. It's not about us coming out as a as gay, or out as lesbian, or out as transgender. It's about us embracing our true identity, because when we decide, or when we make the decision to actually come out of the closet, we're locking our true identities away. And that's where I was. I locked my true identity away in that closet. And so when I got resurrected, it was hard for me to face the truth. I was paralyzed. I couldn't look back. I couldn't accept it. And this is where John was. John couldn't actually accept it. He couldn't accept that Jesus was no longer there. He couldn't accept that, again, because he didn't even understand from scriptures himself. But what it goes on to say is, in verse 8, finally, the other disciple who had reached the tomb first also went inside. He saw and believed. Right? So we can be outside the tomb today, paralyzed by fear, paralyzed by disbelief, paralyzed by all these things that are holding us back from accepting the truth, right? But until you actually go into the tomb and discover for yourself that actually Jesus rose from the dead, you will never believe. And this is what I had to do. I was searching for the truth. I was hungry for the truth. I ran to the truth. But when I came face to face with the truth, I couldn't swallow it. It was hard to swallow. It was hard to accept. It was hard to accept that God called me to detransition. It was hard to accept that God called me to go back to my original gender and embrace the masterpiece that He created me to be. And I know it's hard for a lot of you out there as well to face the truth that your original identity isn't who you say you are. It's who God has created you to be. And oftentimes we believe the lie over the truth because we want to stay deceived. We want to stay deceived. It's so hard. We live in such a sensitive generation now that if you say the wrong thing, people are triggered. But that's right. We need to be triggered. Because if we're not triggered, we're not going to realize that actually what God has in store for us is good. But we'll think that what we have in store for ourselves is good. That's the lie. In fact, it's set up to destroy us. And so, again, when they went into the tomb, it was emphasized that the linen or the cloth that wrapped Jesus was still laying there in its place. Which means when Jesus resurrected, what did He do? He took off His grave clothes. And that's what we need to do as well. When we resurrect, we need to take off our grave clothes, because that's what can restrict us from really embracing life. Remember, death is just a transition over into life, right? And if you're afraid of death, it's because you haven't truly accepted the truth. But when you accept the truth, you will never be afraid to die, because you know that death is a transition over to life, and so God really resurrected me. There's something that happened that day, or that morning when I was having that dream. He really resurrected me. But then it was for me to accept the truth that God created me to be a woman, and that's who I am. The truth is that God loves that woman, and he had greater things in plan and in store for me that I just needed to accept. I needed to embrace. He tapped into some untapped potential that I didn't even know was there. But you'll never be able to see that untapped potential until you meet God, until you come face to face with the truth. And so my encouragement to all of you is to really run to the truth, but not just stop at the truth. Accept it. Let it change your life. Let it encourage you. Let it build you up. Let it restore you. Let it refine you. Let it be your identity, because that is who you truly are in the eyes of God. So that way you rid yourself of all these validations that you're trying to seek from the world, and the only validation you need is a validation from God. I love you guys very much. If this encouraged you, please comment below. If you have any topics, any pressing topics as well that you want me to talk about, I'll be happy to talk about them. Just drop a comment below again. If you want to reach out for a Bible study, please message me on Instagram, DM me. I'll be happy to also, set up a Bible study with you from all over the world. It doesn't really matter. Like, whether you're from the States, whether you're from China, we'll make it work. We'll make it work, okay? But anyway, I love you guys very much. Thank you for staying the course, and I'll see you in the next video.